Hello students, welcome to the session Governance and Compliance in AWS. I am Dr. Sri Harsha, Associate Professor at Department of Computer Science and Information Technology. So in our course Cloud Infrastructure and Services, so we have the topic named as Governance and Compliance in AWS. So before going to know about governance and compliance in AWS, so we have to know about AWS artifact. Generally, any organization, so generally we follow some standards. They have some standards. So depending upon our company's standards, we can follow some rules and regulations to follow all services to run all transactions. Generally here AWS artifact means depending upon your company's industries, you may need to uphold specific standards. Whether we are implementing those standards or not, we can conduct an audit or inspection will ensure that the company has met those standards. In general term, we are using AWS artifact. If you want to know about the company's standards, we can use the service AWS Artifact. AWS Artifact is a service that provides on-demand access to AWS security and compliance reports and set online agreements. So the main goal of AWS Artifact is it is service. It provides on-demand access to AWS security, compliance reports, and online agreements. It consists of two main sections such as AWS Artifact Agreements and AWS Artifact Reports. For example, if you want to know about the entire organization rules and regulations, you can use simply AWS Artifact service to know about the policies of organization. So compliance means we have to accept the rules given by the central authority of the organization. So AWS Artifact, how it works means, in AWS Artifact access compliance related information about the organization. For example, if you want to know about the entire organization standards, rules, regulations and policies, we can use this service AWS Artifact and download reports. Reports contains access to AWS and the third party compliance reports, and accept agreements, review, accept and manage agreements for specific regulations, and manage notifications, set up notifications when certain reports becomes available. So here we are focusing on compliance related information about the organization and download the reports. It contains AWS services and third party reports, and accept all agreements about the rules and regulations of the organization and manage notifications. So for example, a company needs to sign agreement with AWS regarding your use of certain services, AWS services. Okay, so we can do this by following the service name as AWS Artifact Agreements. In AWS Artifact Agreements, we can review, accept and manage agreements for your individual accounts to all your accounts in AWS organization. And here we have different types of agreements offered to the customers. One example of agreement is Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. And another example, suppose a member of your company development team is building an application and needs more information about the responsibility for complying with certain regulatory standards. You can advise them to access this information in AWS Artifact reports. So any developer in your organization wants to build an application. Okay, before going to build an application, he has to know about the entire company standards, policies and all information about the organization. Then they can access through these, they can get all the information about, by using these AWS Artifact reports. These reports provides compliance reports from third party auditors and these auditors have tested and verified that AWS is compliant with variety of global, regional and industry specific security standards and regulations. And AWS artifact reports remains up to date with latest reports releases. You can provide AWS audit artifacts to the auditors to get the entire control of the organization regarding security. And here we have some of the following compliance reports and regulations that you can find within the AWS artifact. Generally, artifact contains on-demand access of compliance reports, security and compliance reports about an organization. Okay, there are list of reports. We have global reports. We have some compliance reports followed by USA, Asia specific, and Europe. And here one report is there, health insurance HIPAA report is there here, Health Insurance Portability Accountability Act, and we have Cloud Security Alliance reports we are following, and we have ISO 9001 reports are there, compliance reports, ISO 27001 report meant for security purpose. They are the example of compliance reports. And in our course we are focusing on governance and compliance. So governance and compliance means oversight role and process. Generally process means set of activities by which companies manage and mitigate business risk. So the companies follow some rules and regulations to manage and mitigate business risk. And compliance means process and internal controls to meet those requirements imposed by governing body. So central authority, single person in the organization, we have set off the process of obeying rules defined by a central authority is known as compliance. So that's why the process and internal controls to meet the requirements imposed by governing body is known as compliance, and oversight role and process by which the companies manage and mitigate business risk. So we can follow some rules and regulations to manage and mitigate business risk is known as governance, and for a control and security purpose we can meet all the requirements designed by a single person. The process of obeying all the rules and regulations defined by a single person in the authority is known as compliance. And coming to governance, risk management and compliance, here the governance, risk management and compliance GRC helps organizations set the foundation for security and compliance requirements and define the policies about your cloud. So governance, risk management and compliance helps organizations or companies or industries. They can define a set of rules for meeting security and compliance requirements and define overall policies. With the help of these governance and compliance, we can define overall policies that contains security and compliance requirements. And these capabilities we are focusing on, coming to governance and compliance, we are focusing on what needs to happen, defines your risk appetite and informs alignment of internal policies. And this is the image that represents governance, risk management and compliance. Observe here, in governance, risk management and compliance, we have certain activities. We have log storage and data de-identification, tagging, service onboarding, change management, forensics, audit and assessment, and governance. So the governance, risk management and compliance includes tagging, log storage, data de-identification, service onboarding, change management, forensics, audit and assessment, and governance. So there are list of Activities are available in governance, risk management and compliance. The capabilities are tagging, log storage, forensics, service onboarding, data de-identification, governance, audit and assessment, change management and records management. Here tagging means assigning metadata to cloud resources. For it includes access control, cost reporting and automation. So, assigning resources, assigning metadata to cloud resources. Here cloud resources means server, storage, networking, process, database, operating system, middleware, virtualization, data and application. So, assign metadata means description of data to cloud resources for control, for access control, cost reporting and automation purpose. And the main goal of tagging is create new resource constraints for visibility or control. So, if you want to create any new resource constructs for visibility or control, we can use tagging, and here grouping together resources that make up microservice, application or workload. The fundamental definition of tagging is to provide enterprise level visibility and control. So, the main goal of tagging is assigning metadata to cloud resources to provide access control, cost reporting and automation. And the main goal is to provide entry level, enterprise level visibility and control. If you want to create new resource constructs for visibility or control, we can use tagging. Log storage. The main goal of log storage is to collect and store your environment logs centrally and securely. So, the main goal of log storage is to evaluate, to monitor, to alert, to audit access and actions performed on cloud resources. So, we can store entire information about all log reports on cloud resources and objects. We can use these log reports. Forensics, the analysis of log data and evidentially captured images of potentially compromised resources to determine whether a compromise occurred or not. The main goal of these analysis is, so forensics means analysis of log data, and we need to provide some evidential proof, evidentially captured images to prove the analysis of log data. And the main goal of forensics is to produce and motivate the application of preventative measures. So, analysis of log data and eventually capture images of potentially compromised resources. And service onboarding capability provides to review and approve AWS services for use based on internal compliance and regulatory requirements. So, the main goal of service onboarding is risk assessment, documentation, implementation patterns and change communication aspects of service consumption. So, review and approve AWS services based on internal compliance and regulatory requirements. Previously, we are following forensics, analysis of log data to provide evidentially captured images of as proofs. And log storage, the main goal of log storage is you can collect, store your reports, your environmental logs centrally and securely for evaluation, monitor, alert and audit access. So, tagging, if you want to create assigning metadata to cloud resources for access control, cost reporting and automation. And if you want to create new resource constructs for visibility or control, and grouping together all resources, like to create, if you want to build an application, we need to grouping together all resources like microservices, application or workload, we can use tagging. And the main goal is enterprise level visibility and control. And log data to evaluate, monitor, alert and audit access and actions performed on cloud resources. If you want to know who are accessing the cloud, who are accessing what type of services, what type of resources. So we need to gather all the information by the help of this log storage, that is to evaluate, monitor, alert, alt access and actions performed on your cloud resources and objects. Forensics involves analysis of log data. We have to provide evidential proof whether the particular event is occurred or not. And service onboarding, the main goal is review and approve all services for internal compliance and regulatory requirements. The main goal is risk assessment, documentation, communication, change communication, implementation patterns, and data de-identification. This includes discover and protect sensitive data, for example national ID numbers, trade data, healthcare information. So we have to store data initially, and we have to discover and protect sensitive data regarding examples like national ID numbers, trade data, healthcare information. And the main goal here is we have to define and enforce business rules and regulatory policies for your cloud environment. So always provide security for the sensitive data and define some rules for those data, rules and policies in cloud. And policies includes the rules for your environment or risk definition. So always protect sensitive data. If you want to provide security for sensitive data, we have to define some policies. Policy means rules for your environment. And audit and assessment here, the task here is we have to gather and organize documentary evidence and enable or independent assessment of your cloud environment. So to gather and organize documentary evidence regarding the resources which we are using in the cloud environment. So here in this capability, it allows you to validate all statements that all changes were performed in accordance to the policy. Here the governance and compliance, the main goal is we have to design some rules and regulations. We have to design some policies based on the problem, based on the resources. Here audit assessment means we can monitor, we can control. So gather and organize documentary evidence to enable independent assessment of your cloud environment, and validate all statements that all changes were performed in the according to the policy. So whatever changes we are doing in the cloud, we can track all those changes. Change management enables you deploy planned. General deploy means move. Whenever we want to, once the application is built successfully, we can move the application to the client environment to deploy the application successfully. Here deploy means moving to the client environment and run the application in the client environment. And here deploy planned alterations. Alterations means changes. Deploy planned alterations to all configurable items that are in an environment within the defined scope. Scope means overall overview of the changes, such as example production and test. So whenever you want to deploy application, you can deploy planned alterations to all configurable items. So if you want to launch application in cloud, why we are launching application in cloud means you can easily reach the globe within minutes, go global in minutes, and pay per use. And if you want to deploy application, we can use change management. This capability enables you to deploy planned alterations to all configurable items. And example is production and test. And alter resource configurations and minimize and accept the risk to existing IT infrastructure. The main goal is we have to minimize risk with the help of this change management. And records management enables you, we can store records, we can retain records, we can secure data based on internal policies and regulatory requirements. Examples are financial records, transactional data, audit logs, business records, personally identifiable information. So, we can store records, we can retain records, we can secure your data according to the internal policies and compliance requirements. Example of records are financial records, transactional records, audit logs, business logs, and personally identifiable information. So, they are the examples of capabilities in governance and compliance. Here we have tagging. The first one is tagging is there. Tagging, log reports, and governance, service onboard assessment, forensics, change management, records management, audit and assessment, audit and assessment. So, if you want to access cloud resources, if you want to deploy your application in cloud, we have to follow some rules and regulations and policies. We can define all rules, regulation, policies by using these governance and compliance reports. AWS Cloud Governance Services Enablers. Here we have a governance area and we have technologies which are used for governance. So, governance means the rules, and we can create some rules and regulations to manage your business. For example, for your organization, if you want to create roles and responsibilities in cloud, we can use identity and access management policies and roles service. If you want to configure application configuration management, the technologies are cloud formation templates, elastic beanstalk, private AMIs. For financial controls, consolidated billing, linked accounts, CloudWatch billing alarms. For network security, virtual private cloud, network access control list, security groups, virtual private gateways, VPN connections, route tables and subnets. For information assurance processing, we have corporate gold operating system images, virtual private connect workload isolation, dedicated EC2, Elastic Connect, Elastic Compute Connect instances. And information assurance storage, we have S3 AES 256-bit encryption, partner extensions offer boot volume and EBS volume encryption. Information assurance transmission, we have hardware or software or VPN connections, direct connect. For access control, we have services like identity access management policies, bucket policies, EC2 instance roles, query string authentication, access control list, authentication and identification and authentication. We have identity and access management, multi-factor authentication, group policies and roles, federated identity management API, disaster recovery and continuity of operations. We have EBS snapshot for disaster recovery of data during disaster time. We have EBS snapshot, S3 nearline storage, Glacier near offline storage, storage gateway, bulk data import or export, managed AWS number SQL or SQL database services, extensive third party solutions. Workload, we have Elastic Load Balancer, EC2, Elastic Compute Cloud, auto scaling, Route 53, latency based routing, CloudFront, content delivery network, multi-AZ, multi-regional workload deployment, monitoring and reporting. We have CloudWatch alarms, simple notification services. So, this is the overview of governance and compliance. So this diagram is very important for governance and compliance. We have log storage, we can store log reports, we can control, we can monitor, we can alert, enter data, data de-identification, tagging, service onboarding, change management, forensics, governance, audit and enhancement, assessment. So governance, so the overview of the session is governance. The governance means we have set of rules and regulations which can be designed by companies to manage and mitigate business risk. So we can define the rules and regulations, the policies which can be framed by the companies to manage their business risk, and compliance means the process and internal controls to meet the requirements imposed by governing body. The process of obeying rules and regulations defined by a single central authority in the organization is known as compliance. Governance means oversight role and process by which the companies manage and mitigate their business risk. So for our business, we can design, we can frame some rules and regulations and policies to manage our entire business risk, that is governance. So if you want to build an application in your organization, for example, we have developer wants the example of compliance reports. We have HIPAA report is there, ISO 9001 report is there. HIPAA means Health Insurance Portability Accountability Act, and we have CSA reports is there. These all are examples of compliance reports, the Cloud Security Alliance reports. So if any organization, any developer in the organization wants to build application, if he wants to know about the entire organization rules, regulations, policies and compliance reports, they can use AWS artifact reports. And this diagram is very important. Log storage, tagging, log storage, forensics, service onboarding, data de-identification, governance, audit and assessment, change management, records management. So tagging, we already know about tagging. So assigning metadata means description of data to cloud resources. Cloud resources like server, storage, networking, database, virtualization, middleware, application, data, these all are known as cloud resources. Assigning metadata means description of data to cloud resources for access control, reporting and automation purposes. And to create a new resource constructs for visibility, we can use tagging, and the main goal is enterprise level visibility and control. Log storage capability, the main goal is to evaluate, monitor and alert alt access and actions. So collect and store information about your log reports in your environment for evaluation, monitor, alert and alt access. Without storage of log reports, we can't monitor the who are accessing your application, who are accessing data in the organization. So we can collect data first, we can store your environment log reports centrally and securely to evaluate, monitor, alert and audit. Forensics means analysis of log data to collect evidential proof whether the particular event occurred or not. And service onboarding to review and approve all services for internal compliance and regulatory requirements. The main capability here is risk assessment, documentation, implementation patterns and change communication aspects of service consumption. So service onboarding means review all services, review and approve all services. Data de-identification to discover, and if you want to provide security data to data, that is to discover and protect sensitive data as it is stored and processed, we can use this capability data de-identification. Example of sensitive data is national ID numbers, trade data, healthcare information. And governance enables you to define and enforce business and regulatory policies for your cloud environment. Policies includes rules for your environment or risk definitions. So always provide data storage, always provide security to the data storage for sensitive data. With the help of these data identification, we can to provide security or protection to the data, we can frame from rules, policies and regulations based on the organization, that is known as policies. Audit and assessment, the capability is to gather and organize documentary evidence. The main goal of audit is whatever the transactions occur in your organization in cloud, you can provide some documentary evidence, that is audit and assessment. Change management means deploy planned alterations to all configurable items. For example, if you want to deploy an application in cloud, you can deploy planned alterations, means changes. You can plan alterations to all configurable items in cloud. Records management, you can store, retain and secure your data according to the internal policies and regulatory requirements. Example of records management is financial records, transactional data, audit logs, business records, personally identifiable information. There is the list of governance area. So governance means always we can define some rules and regulations to manage risk in business. To define rules, regulations and policies, frame some policies to manage risk in business, to manage and mitigate risk in business. Here we have governance areas are there, roles and responsibilities, configuration management, financial control, network security. We can use some services in AWS like identity access management for roles and responsibilities. For configuring application in cloud, you can use cloud formation templates, elastic beanstalk, private AMIs. For financial control, you can use consolidated billing, linked accounts, cloud watching billing alarms. For access control, we can use identity access management policies. Thank you all.